Are you finished your job?
I have, yes. I walked out yesterday. Actually, not quite. I've got to pop back in tomorrow to hang some pictures, would you believe? In fact, I was just about to say, I don't know how I got suckered into this. And I know exactly how I got suckered into this because I was there at the time. The client, whose house I'm working in, was chatting to one of the girls at the interior designers. And so I could only hear one half of the conversation. And client had been talking about needing somebody to hang some pictures, and I could have kept neutral, kept out of it really. And then she was having a phone call. Oh, and who do you use to hang pictures and things? And it was jibba 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 jibba. Oh, does he do that sort of thing? Jibba 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 jibba. Oh, well, I'll just ask Peter then. And they, no, how do I get out of this now? Because obviously I've just done 30 grand's worth of work for her, and you can't really say no. I'm not hanging your. Actually, no, that sounded pretty good. No, I'm not hanging your pictures. No, that would work, wouldn't it?
That's the thing you need to say.
Anyway, I'm popping in tomorrow for a couple of hours to hang some pictures. But other than that, I walked out yesterday with all the regret of a man scraping mud off his boots. That's a clean version, I think. So yeah, all good.
So it's 2 levels of congratulations then. So you've hit your 20k.
Hit me 20k, yeah.
Congrats on that. That's awesome work.
Thank you very much. It is pretty epic. As always with these things, it takes, about 15 hours to get the last 12 people in.
Yeah.
Because you can't announce it when you get to 20k because there's a certain amount of churn. You lose some subscribers and you gain others. So yes. But yes, 20k came around and has gone. And we're now racing headlong towards more.
Wow.
Which is good.
That's awesome. Fantastic. So yeah, you've got the 20k and you finished that job in pretty much the same period of time.
Pretty much, yeah.
Must feel pretty good.
It feels great, actually. It is, it's a bit like, I was chatting to my dad about this, and it's been a little bit like when, Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, got fired, came back from the wilderness years, sort of saved the company, invented the iPod and the iPhone, all the rest of it. Very, very difficult man to work with, by all accounts. Very, very opinionated, would change his mind about things and then pretend that it was, that he was thinking that way all along. And yet some of the hardware and software guys who worked under him said they did some of their finest work during that period. My client and my interior designers are no Steve Jobs. Let's be absolutely clear about that. But their attention to detail, let's be polite about it, has actually pushed me to do some of the nicest work I've done. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was. I don't know if you saw on Instagram. I've been posting a few bits and pieces on there of the cabinetry and things, and they've come up very sweetly. They're very, very crisp.
I haven't seen any pictures of the finished job yet,
right?
So
okay.
I'll have to. I briefly went on Instagram earlier, but I didn't. I wasn't on for long, so I didn't see yours. Didn't pop up in my timeline, but it's one of these
more attention, Andy.
Random things where they'll probably pop. It's Instagram's bizarre like that as to when. Generally, you do kind of see everything. It's not quite like Facebook where. I think your timeline was a lot more kind of pruned as to what Facebook wanted you to see.
Yes.
But Instagram's weird because I've had it where someone's posted something and then I've looked at the date stamp and it was actually posted 2 days ago.
All right.
And it's only turned up on my timeline like now, which is weird. Sometimes you get to see stuff straight away, but sometimes I think it's just part of the weird algorithm of maybe I've... seen too many of your pictures and it thinks I don't want to see any more, which is obviously never the case.
Anyway, they turned out very nicely and we're very pleased with that. A little whoopsie, a little gotcha. The interior designer, where was this? Not last week before. I'd been done it's a big 3x4 meter bookcase. So 2 towers and a connecting bridge, if you like, and the banquette sits between them. And I'd just got the banquette in. And of course, these have all been drawn up and agreed and, forever ago. And the interior designer comes in and says, "Oh, is that how deep it is?" Well, yes, it's on the drawings. Oh, it looks more like a bench. I need it deeper.
No.
No, just make it 125 mil deeper, can you? That's right. Yeah, sure, no problem. I can do that. So I did. I put a 125 mil 5-inch fillet in the back and down the sides a little bit on little angle bracket things that I made. So yeah, it was fine. Anyway, when you catch up with Instagram, there's a little snippet of video on that as well, which is good fun. I'm really enjoying the short form videos on Instagram because you can't post more than a minute. So it really tightens your editing up.
It does. Have you tried Instagram stories at all?
No.
I've only used it a little bit, but I think it's even tighter on there. I think you can only do, 15 seconds at a time or something. I think you can join videos together somehow, but I've never really looked into how that works. But again, it forces you to be, if you want to do it as a story, which has its pros and cons, because I think the stories are similar to like Snapchat, which I also don't understand.
No.
But I think they're temporary. So anything that you put in a story disappears after 24 hours or something.
What's the point of that? I mean, I just don't understand. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a strange kind of thing. But I have found myself sometimes just watching the stories of other people, and it's quite a snappy kind of looking at this and this and this and this, and, just 15-second snippets of what people have been up to. But yeah, I know what you mean. Most stuff that I post on Instagram, I want it to be there forever. I don't want it to be a temporary thing most of the time. If
you want a temporary thing, you can use Snapchat like nobody else is,
Yeah. But a lot of places are going down this whole story route. I think Facebook added it, and who else have done? Patreon have added something similar now as well, but I haven't tried it. But it's strange.
No, I have zero interest in that, I'm afraid.
No, there's not enough hours. Not enough hours.
Indeed. So how's your week been? You finished up your display stands and stuff?
Awesome, yep. So the exhibition work is all, my side of things is all done. So best part of 50 or 60 custom-made plinth things, which I'm doing a bit of a video series about at the minute.
I bet, yeah.
And then all the display stands, and then things to hold title cards in place for like description, things like angled display. So yeah, that was all installed. It's 8 meters long. It's one big long unit that's going down the room. And I'm allowed to talk about it now as well, which is great. So it's for the Great Exhibition of the North,
right?
Which is a huge series of exhibitions happening, mostly based in Newcastle, I think. But it's celebrating all things Northern. So it's not just a Newcastle-focused exhibition. There's stuff about, Manchester, Liverpool, all sorts of stuff is kind of creeping into this exhibition by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
And this particular thing that I've done is for a company, a guy called Steve at Brick This, and he's a Lego architect.
Oh, right.
And he's doing a Lego timeline of Northern innovation. And it's an 8 meter long timeline of, well, exactly that, of Northern inventions. So I'll not spoil it, because it'll be the big reveal in a couple of weeks' time when the exhibition opens.
Fantastic. Lego architect. I mean, that's just unbelievable, isn't it? What a job.
I know. He's an ex-photographer.
Attention to detail,
ex-professional photographer. And
does it, okay, big question for the Lego architect. Do you glue them together or not?
I don't know if I should be saying this, but no, he's not.
He's not. Okay, this is my nephew's young lady was heavily involved in marketing at Lego, so they have commissioned a lot of these sort of things before, and it's a hotly debated topic amongst Lego engineers whether you should super glue them together or not.
Yeah, I know, because I've mentioned, like, are you sure this is going to be okay? And do you not want to glue it? And he's just not keen on gluing his Lego thing. Sometimes I think there's no option, but yeah, it sounds like one of those, whichever camp you happen to be in for gluing Lego together. But really interesting. I would highly recommend anyone anywhere really to try and get themselves up to Newcastle. The exhibition's on for 3 months from the 22nd of June to the 9th of September. You can go to getnorth2018.com to find out more about it, but there's a whole load of exhibitions. It's not just this. There's loads and loads of stuff on all around the Northeast. And yeah, if you happen to go to the Mining Institute in Newcastle, which is right next to Central Station, from 22nd of June onwards, then you'll see all of my display stands, hopefully blending into the background so that all you look at is the Lego.
Brilliant.
So all my bits done, and it's now over to him to put everything together, ready for launch. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing it all with the Lego actually on it and
there you
stuff.
are.
So that's quite exciting.
Sounds great. Well, that sounds like a photo op, doesn't it?
Yeah, it'll be a good one to see how it all comes out. So
yeah, fantastic.
And so now that that's done, I finally managed to get a chance on building myself a new studio desk.
Yep, saw a bit of that.
So that whole side of things out, and it's up and running now. Literally, I've just put the last bits on it this morning. Paint's still a little bit tacky, and my monitors are now sitting on shelves with tacky paint on, which is something that I always tell customers not to do.
They'll never come off.
So I've been doing that. I've got a couple of little bits and pieces left to do, but now I've just got this huge backlog of video editing to get through. Similar to yourself, I imagine.
Yes, I'm starting to. I've done a little bit of the editing along the way. But no, I've ended up with 2 series going out at the same time, which is a bit wasn't my intention really. But I've got the spraying one on the go, and then I've got the big shelves and the bits and pieces for the big job on the go as well. So yeah.
I enjoyed the spraying one. I watched that. I thought that was very interesting. Your first one in that series. Wow, the overspray. Did that ever get any better then, even with the new tip?
Not really.
That's incredible.
Not really. It's much better, much more controlled with a new tip and with the different paints and all that. But it's still, it just seems to be part and parcel of the process. You end up with a lot of very fine paint in the air, which has to come down. In fact, not to jump the gun too much, but because I'm doing some painting in the rooms that I've been putting the cabinets in. The last one, lots of shelves, lots of horizontal work. So you spray stuff, paint in the air, it settles, and it screws up the finish. So I actually finished the shelves off with a roller in the end. It was that bad. And it wasn't helped by the fact that obviously you've got to seal the room up completely. It was swelteringly hot. I mean, really muggy, really, really sticky. And of course, I'm spraying water-based paints into the air, so it was taking forever to dry, and it was just, a very difficult period. But there we are.
I'll not steal the thunder off your videos because I know you're going to go into whether or not this is a viable option long term. But
yeah, I mean, it's a really tough call, I've got to say. Having experienced the finish of spraying, it is so good, and the actual spraying is so fast. If I can get some kind of booth with extraction sorted, then it might be, I think. But we're still at the relative foothills. I've done 4 months worth of this effectively, and I'd like to think I've got a little bit better at it, but I'm still getting the problem of this overspray, of this paint dust. So it certainly needs some kind of extraction, something over there. As always, great comments attached to the video. Many along the lines of, why are you using that toy? Why don't you get yourself a proper sprayer? And I just opened the window. Well, I had a quick look outside. There's £500,000 worth of cars parked in my street outside. If I start venting paint dust out there,
yeah, you wouldn't be too popular.
People ain't going to be happy. No, that's right. They'll be queuing up to sue me for every penny I've got.
Yeah, it's not really worth the risk, is it?
No, it's crazy.
But no, it looked. I mean, the finish looked stunning.
Yeah, the finish was lovely. And again, I've run all kinds of different paints and makes and finishes through it, and it's handled it without any problem at all, with no thinning. So yeah, a fan of airless.
So just for laymen getting into the spraying side of things, so this is an electric sprayer, the Graco.
The Graco's an airless sprayer. Funny enough, there is another video coming out that explains this in a bit more detail. But yeah, normally the principle of spraying is that you have something, you have a pot of whatever it is you're spraying, paint. You have a tube going into it. Do you ever use the spray diffusers at college or at school, or you blow into one end and it just sprays stuff out? Yeah, you can make your own with a straw.
Oh, yeah, but similar to how an airbrush works.
Exactly, yeah, exactly the same principle. Compressed air is forced through, and it creates a vacuum and then picks up the paint and sprays it forwards. That's the same whether you use high volume, low pressure, or if you use a spray gun attached to a compressor. Slightly different ways of doing it. With a compressor, you need a big compressor to do it because you need a large volume of air to maintain a steady pressure to keep the pressure regular. High volume, low pressure has a lot of air but at lower pressure, and it has a turbine which runs constantly. It's basically like having a Hoover in the room with you. Airless goes a completely different way altogether. It doesn't use any kind of compressed air. Instead, it pumps the paint through. And instead of having a tip with a needle that you have to juggle back and forth or change the size of the needle or whatever to get the right spray pattern to suit whatever material, whatever paint you're using, you'd get a fixed tip size, and those tips are interchangeable. So I've been using mostly a 310. That gives a 6-inch fan, and it's a 0.10 of an inch hole. Graco are American, in case you didn't know, hence the imperial measurements. And it's essentially very simple, very straightforward. Obviously, with a air-fed sprayer, you've either got a tube going into the pot of paint underneath, or you've got a gravity-fed gun where the pot of paint sits above the trigger handle. Well, obviously, you've got to keep that fairly steady. You can't spray up or down or sideways. With the airless, you can do it every which way you want, which is fantastic for getting in and around, say, cornice in a room, or ornamental plasterwork, that sort of thing. Very, very good. And great quality, great finish from it.
And you pour the paint into some receptacle that's attached to the thing.
You've got a little 1 litre pot. The Graco has the Graco have done a few of these cordless, airless sprayers. The current one is the pick of the crop, basically the Ultra series. They do a corded Ultra, a cordless Ultra, and they do an Ultra Max, which is the one that I got. There's a bit of debate about what the difference is. Obviously, the corded and the cordless Ultras are essentially the same. They say that the Ultra can do mineral-based or spirit-based paints and lacquers, by which I think they mean turpentine or white spirit-based, whereas the Ultra Max is for solvent-based because it has spark arrest stuff in it, so it doesn't turn into a bomb in your hand. But I'm fairly sure white spirit and mineral-based paints are actually flammable, so I don't quite understand the difference.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
but you're using water-based.
I'm only using water-based. I've only used water-based paints for a decade or more since water-based paints were available. I've used them, and it works extremely well.
Yeah, I've used. Well, you'll see the pictures at some point on Instagram, possibly today, of this kind of grey satinwood Dulux that I've used on this, and I'm really liking that satinwood water-based. It's kind of an alternative to eggshell, really, to your oil-based eggshell.
Yes, it's got a bit more sheen to it.
I can't tell the difference on the fine. I suppose if you put them next to each other, maybe, but to me it just looks like eggshell. Yeah. I'd love to know what the official hardness difference is between oil-based eggshell and water-based satinwood.
Yeah.
Because as far as I can tell, once this is properly dried, it's the usual rules apply where, the paint hardens over 1 or 2 weeks, even with water-based.
Yes.
I mean, it's touch dry within a matter of minutes almost.
Yeah.
On some of the paint, certainly within a matter of hours, and it's dry enough to pick up and stuff. But it still hardens. The paint still hardens over time. But I'd love to know whether there is a genuine advantage to going down the oil-based eggshell route anymore, or whether it's just pointless now. I'm not sure.
I think it's a matter of habit, really. As I haven't used solvent-based paints for 10 years or more, so I'm very, very comfortable using water-based paint.
Do you ever use an additive like Floetrol? Or?
Yeah, sometimes use Floetrol. The Dulux exterior satin wood tends to be a bit gloppy, a bit thick. So I put a little bit of Floetrol in that if I ever do it, if I ever do exterior type work, just to make it flow a little bit better and give it a bit more sort of open time, a bit more time to work. Because you know what it's like if you're outside and it's sunny or just hot, it'll go off very quickly. So, but yeah, I've been using Tikkurila paints a lot. In fact, the only paint that actually choked the Graco airless sprayer was Furrow and Ball exterior eggshell.
Right.
Even no matter how much I thinned it down, it wouldn't spray at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I ended up getting the colour matched in Tikkurila Helmi, which is really a nice paint. You ever get the chance to use it? It's.
Why do you think that is then? That the Furrow and Ball block?
I don't know. It's supposed to be sprayable, and the emulsion would spray straight out of the can. So I don't know. I wasn't bothered to investigate it. I was all ready to go. I'd prepped an entire window and window seat and all the rest of it. And the damn thing was just choking the gun completely. I didn't have any other paint ready to go, so I just hand painted that bit in the end.
Strange.
And gone on with my life, yeah.
Well, that's you done then, other than a couple of pictures.
Yeah.
And that's it. Do you know how many pictures you've got to do? Or
I don't actually know. I know the wall it's going on, so it's a fairly small wall, and there can't be that many.
It's not going to be like 400 pictures to put up or something.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
I once had a kind of gallery room to do for someone, and it had probably 30 or 40 pictures that all had to be at very, very precise spacings and heights, and then you had groups of them to do, and all of them were done with picture wire on the back, so every single one, the fixing had to be in a different place. You had to obviously work it out and all that, and can take a while.
They do, and you've done your fair share of picture hanging, as I have back in the handyman days. People with paintings, actual art, original canvases, the fixings that those things come with are all rubbish.
Yeah.
They're all terrible. You think, how much have they paid for this original art, original oil painting? And yet the fixings that come on the back of it are like 20 pence, the worst of the worst sort of pound shop fixings.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocking. I've had to replace so many of those, because if that thing comes off the wall, you know who's getting the blame, don't you?
Yeah. Exactly. I had a company get in touch, and it was kind of around the time where I was stopping doing picture hanging and all that sort of thing anyway. But a company got in touch on behalf, it was like a concierge type service.
Yeah, I know.
And they were basically saying they've got clients with like 100, 200,000 pound pictures, and what would I charge per picture to put them up and stuff. And they were only prepared to pay something like 20 or 30 pounds per picture to hang it. Yeah, and I was like, get stuffed. I'm not hanging a 200,000 pound picture for 30 pounds. It's like, the risk reward doesn't. I don't care how long it takes. Skewed
way over to the wrong side of risk, isn't it?
Not a chance. But well, someone else can take that risk. I'm not. No way.
And of course, they'll be chattering amongst themselves, saying, "Oh, you know what? You can't find anybody to do a decent job these days.
Yeah,
we've got all this work to do, and couldn't find anybody to do it." Yeah,
exactly. But I couldn't believe it. It was like, "Are you serious? This is like." Do you realise how much the insurance alone would cost me if I wanted to take that on as a job? Because my insurance wouldn't cover us for stuff of that level for not for one single item. So yeah. Anyway,
It's like people who want big mirrors hung on chimney breasts. You know, it's on going on a chimney breast. It'll be fine. They are overwhelmingly the worst wall in the house.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
They were always terrible. I was told, I don't know how true it is, but I was told that they always used to give the apprentice bricklayer the chimney breasts to practice on.
Right.
Because you could guarantee that they were going to get completely sealed up, you know, mortared in and plastered over and all the rest of it. Because obviously you don't want smoke getting out, so the apprentice would always practice on those.
Interesting.
So they're potentially some of the worst brickwork in Victorian houses.
I had a one once where I was putting a big flat screen TV up on a chimney breast, and it was like an open fire, or a fireplace where the actual fire surrounding everything had been removed, so it was literally just a square hole at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And I was about to start and it was a big TV, so it was going to be wall bolted in. You know, your great big like 14 mil holes for the wall bolts. Your expanding shield anchor type ones.
Anchors, yeah.
So you know the wall vibrates a fair bit when you've got the SDS going. And as I'm looking, before I even started, I had a look at this opening, and I could see straight away there's no lintel holding the bricks up.
Ooh.
And I said, you know, when I start drilling into this wall, there's a reasonable chance all of these bricks are just going to fall out, because the wall's going to vibrate, and you've got no lintel. Someone's taken whatever fireplace out, presumably. Oh, you know what it is? Sorry, I've got my Amazon deliveries just arrived. Give us 2 seconds. Sorry,
yeah,
it's
sure,
my
no
podcast mic stand.
Oh.
2 seconds. Oh, sorry about that.
You're
2 seconds.
Ooh, nice. Like it. I've something very similar, but mine was a really cheap one. You got the Rode. Get you.
Yeah, it's a Rode. The box is a bit bashed, mind you. Can you see that?
Yeah, God, yeah. Bit chewed up.
See what state that's in. It's all part of me new desk thing, so that's going to mean that I can actually have the mic in front of it instead of awkwardly to the side that I've got at the minute. So that's quite exciting. Anyway,
you're doing a chimney breast and
catch my breath. So yeah, I was doing the chimney breast, and I said, you know, there's no lintel holding those bricks up. You've probably got a row of 3 bricks, double, like double skinned. I just said, you know, if they come out, that I'm not a bricklayer. You'll have to you or someone else will have to fix it, because there should be some form of lintel there, I would presume.
Yeah.
Luckily, it was fine, but I don't know. There was nothing holding the bricks up.
Yeah, one of those ones where you wish you had your safety boots on, because
oh yeah,
you know, instead of just trainers, you think, oh
yeah,
man.
too right. Anyway, don't have to worry about that now.
No, we don't, thankfully. So I have a little bit of follow up. It's actually a follow up from episode 7. With my apologies, friend of the show, Mike Farrington. You remember Mike? He said he just listened to the latest podcast, episode 7. Oddly enough, really related to the subject of pain, talking about knee pain, carpal tunnel, and all that. He's dealing with, I'm going to mangle this pronunciation, plantar fasciitis, I think, which I think is heel and sole of the foot trouble.
Oh, really?
Right now, it's really slowing him down. He says when he was younger, nothing bothered him. As the years slip by, these things are really starting to bug me, he says. And apologies to Mike, that came in and I just wasn't together enough to have it ready for the last podcast. So yeah, I hope in the intervening weeks your feet are getting better, Mike. Hope that's better. He says that after listening to all the episodes, I now consider myself a fan of your podcast. So he hopes it works out well for us.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I hope you get sorted, because it's a pain in the backside when you've got stuff that it's very frustrating, especially when you've got a lot of stuff you want to just plow on with.
Absolutely. And foot pain as well is the worst, because you can't do anything. You've got to sit with your feet up.
Yeah. Has he said what's caused it? Is it too much standing on concrete floors? And
don't know. Didn't say.
Yeah, absolute pain. I've just been to the docks this morning because my arm's no better.
Oh, really? It's just turning into a podcast about 2 old blokes complaining about their ailments, isn't it?
Just whinging about being old. It's just, God. Yeah, they're going to send us for physio, and hopefully that'll help. But it's been 2.5 months now, this stupid RSI thing. I mean, I've only just got my new desk up and running today. Yeah. And I've got now my tablet, I've got the shuttle Pro jog wheel thing. I've got a vertical. I've done everything I can possibly do. Got a seat at the right height. My monitors are now at a much better height. So I've done everything. And the doctor said, you know, you've done everything you should do. And now we need to try and work on getting your arm restoring proper movement to it. Because at the minute, even just twisting it to the point that I can type, and in other words, just keeping my hand kind of flat on a table, is putting stress up my top of my arm at the minute. And yeah, hopefully physio will sort that out. But there you go. Look after yourselves, folks.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Yeah, you know, you've only got one set of hands, eyes, legs, lung, ears, the rest of it. Do whatever you can to look after them.
Exactly.
Because if you don't, they'll come back to bite you when you get to my sort of age anyway.
It's funny as well because I did a video recently about the riving knife on my table saw.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really trying to make a sustained effort at the minute to keep guards and blade guards and riving knives and, you know, just trying to put across that message of it's not okay to run tools without guards on. If what you choose to do in your own time is up to you, but I'm trying to put across that message. The amount of people who said, well, just take the guard off. And it's like, oh my God, you can't win either way. Yeah. It's like,
you can't win. No, the point is though, Andy, that, you know, again, things like this are different all over the world. We see an awful lot of YouTube videos by our American cousins who think that a guard and a splitter are just, you know, ridiculous things that just get in the way. Here in the UK, in a commercial workshop, you must have those fitted. You can't run an unguarded blade. It's one of the reasons why dado cutters aren't. You can use them, but you're not able to comply with the regulations if you do, generally speaking, without sort of fairly elaborate guarding processes. And it carries a hefty fine as well. I mean, you could be fined 5 figures if you were caught, and especially if an accident happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the UK and even just trying to get hold of a dado stack isn't straightforward. You know, it's routinely talked about in America, just to use a stacked dado head on your table saw and stuff. And over here, table saws just aren't designed to take that, and it's quite hard getting hold of even the bits to do. You'd probably just have to get it imported from the States, but that's why you don't often see that in UK woodworking videos. You don't see people doing dados on the table saw.
No.
Because most table saws you can't do it, and we've found other ways around it.
I have to say as well, I am slightly dismayed at the number of British YouTubers that I see using an unguarded blade on a table saw. It doesn't set a good example. It's not big and it's not clever, and you know, as a result of the health and safety guidelines that we have in this country, that our incidence of table saw accidents is a fraction of what happens in the US. Things like the saw stop would just never be a product here.
The saw stop's an interesting one. What's your views on it?
Again, I mean, it's a fascinating, very clever piece of technology, very clever application of the tech. If it kicks in, it's going to cost you a fair chunk of money because that whole blade and capture assembly has to be replaced. It seems a completely wasted application of tech when you can avoid it all just by having a guard and just by having a riving knife. Keep your fingers away from the blade. It's not difficult. It's not that hard.
The thing that worries me about the saw stop, I think it's a brilliant piece of kit. If SawStop came along and said, "Here's one for your workshop," obviously I would bite the hands off. The beautiful.
Where would you put it?
I've no idea. I'd hang it from the ceiling or something. But the thing that worries me is I'm sure I heard something where they were going to try and make this technology mandatory in table saws.
Yes,
that worries me immensely, because what will happen is that instead of just reputable companies like SawStop making the saw, when their patent runs out, these are going to get mass-produced over wherever in the world, and there's going to be cheap copies of what SawStop are doing, and they're not going to... I'm not convinced they're going to work as reliably as one single company doing it who currently holds the patent on that technology.
Yeah.
So I would be very nervous about using a cheap Chinese import saw that's got that kind of technology on.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust it. And the other thing that puts me on edge about the whole situation, and I've heard a lot of people with SawStop saws saying this, is that you do become more complacent using the tool when you know you've got that safety net there.
Yeah.
And then when you move on to a saw that doesn't have that safety net there, you've built all these bad habits up that perhaps you wouldn't have built up had you had a saw that didn't have that on.
Yes.
So
it's the ABS syndrome, anti-lock braking system. I knew people who would tear around at ridiculous speeds, convinced that they were invincible because they had ABS on their car. And you think, well, no, it doesn't stop you instantly. It stops you as fast as it possibly can. But if you're on a particularly slippery road, you're still going to have a crash.
Yeah,
It's not a complete magic panacea that will solve all your, or let you drive like a hooligan.
yeah, it does. It does worry me a little bit. I'm quite happy while decent companies like SawStop are doing it, as I say. But I would panic when cheap imitations start hitting the market.
Yeah. Well, I think my woodworking days will certainly be long gone by the time that happens, I think, because SawStop's a fairly new thing, so they must have at least another 20 years on the patent.
Yeah, I'm not sure. How long do patents last?
25 years, I think.
Is it 25 years?
I think
I'm
so.
not sure. But could they, if it went into some sort of legislation, could they force the sale of the patent or transfer of it somehow? I don't know how these things work. If it comes into legislation, that they would have to give it up somehow. No idea.
Don't know. SawStop, the company, has been sold to TS Technics now, hasn't it? So the people who own Festool.
Yeah, I'd heard about that. Yeah, so don't know. Be interesting to see where that goes.
They're pretty good at holding on to their patents, I tell you. Do you know why no other track saw has click stops on the depth setting?
Is that a Festool patent, is it?
Festool patent, yeah.
No, I didn't realise that. Yeah. I still get people commenting on my track saw. I've done like a Festool, just one of my quick tip videos.
Yeah.
And I still get people commenting saying, oh, you can do exactly the same thing with a bit of wood glued onto another bit of wood and using it as a guide. And it's like...
Yeah, it's not quite the same.
No, it's not the same, no. And you certainly can get away with that until you can afford the real thing, but there's many, many benefits to the... honestly, track saw is one of the best things I've bought. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember.
Seems like forever ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, use it all the time. Amazing. So, one of the other things you mentioned was this YouTube thing.
Apparently the maker movement is over. Watch time is disappearing. Nobody's getting interested in YouTube videos anymore. At least so say Matthias Wandel and John Heitz, is it?
Yes, I've been watching their channel. I find it quite compelling viewing. I'm enjoying their. They're doing like a bit of a collaboration thing, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. It's quite clever, quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think. I don't know about John Heitz. I think he's been around for a long time, hasn't he? But Matthias Wandel has been on YouTube for a long time. I wonder if it's more a question of expectation. You know, if you've kind of made a living out of YouTube for a long time and suddenly that starts to go away, it's easy to blame everybody else. I think, but as Matthias Wandel said in the video, you know, there are only so many things you can do that are new, and yeah, maybe the golden years are over. Maybe it's not. You can never get that audience again. There is a slightly less charitable explanation as well, which we may come back to later.
Yeah, I looked into this because he'd gone into the stats on Google Trends, and one of the interesting things is that I looked up the things that he'd been looking up, for example, how to make a table or how to make a bed. And he's right that there's definitely a drop in people searching for that in the States, but there's not a drop of people searching for that in the UK.
No.
So, and I would almost guarantee there's not a drop in people searching for that in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
see, I think my theory on it is that, and I'm sorry, forgive me interrupting, but the idea of mine, the other explanation is that for many years we were force-fed our American cousins on YouTube because that's all that was. But now we've got many more local people, whether it's in Britain, whether it's in France or Germany, Mexico, wherever, doing their own YouTube channels, and people are less likely to search for and watch American videos if they've got their own videos homegrown locally.
possibly that might be part of it. Although I still regularly go onto YouTube and find, and I'm subscribed to, I think, 150 channels at the minute on YouTube, and I regularly go on and there's nothing to watch. Regularly.
Really?
And out of
150 channels and nothing on. We should do a song about that.
Yeah. And don't get us wrong, there's always new stuff there, but if I see one more video of someone making a knife, honestly, you know, the rest did it back in the day. Yeah. Amazing. The first knife videos that I saw him making, especially the ones made out of old
saw blades
steel
and
stuff. Amazing. Obviously, Alex Steele's done amazing Damascus steel knives and all that. You know, they're kind of in a league of their own. But then you do get a lot of people trying to copy them, and you just get thousands of videos of people making knives. Yeah. And as a result, that dilutes it for everyone on certain subjects. It's like once you've seen one or two knife making videos, unless that is really a thing that you're into, that'll probably do the job. Same goes for people making tables, desks, chairs. Yeah. I hate to say it, but my studio desk video, which I will be doing a video of, but I know it's going to absolutely bomb because there's a million videos out there of people making computer desks. So, but I'll put it out there anyway, but I'm not expecting it to do well. No. Because I know how many videos are already out there. But then there's loads of other things that I regularly want to find a video on, and I can't find it. So I think people just need to be a bit more, do the homework before releasing videos, go on to things like Google Trends. I mean, I always check before, not necessarily before putting a video together, but certainly before putting things like my title and keywords and all that sort of thing together. I do check to see what people are searching for first, and then and sometimes I'll target the whole video around what people are searching for, or I'll change it slightly. And it's like, oh, well, loads of people have done a video about making a desk, but not many people have done a video about getting your monitors at the right height. So I might make it more focused on making a monitor riser for your desk, for example, which I'm not planning on doing. But it's just something that popped into my head. People just need to be a bit more niche, and I think doing the homework a bit more on what they're putting out there. I think the other side of it is the YouTube and Google algorithm. I think is the big reason for all of this. I think. Yeah. I think there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we just don't understand. Yep. And the new PlayStation interface for YouTube speaks volumes, because that is totally geared around. It's not geared around subscribers in any way, shape, or form. You can still get into your subscribers, but it's extra clicks to do that. You get pushed onto your home screen, and generally now the stuff that's getting recommended on your home screen is so good and gets you into other channels that you've maybe never seen that it's rare that you even bother going into your subscribers. And this is something that I hear across the board, that the subscriber model will eventually disappear from YouTube because AI is getting good enough to predict what sort of videos you want to watch. And that's only going to get better and better over time. The whole AI side of things is such an interesting conversation in its own right. But this model of just relying on picking a subject and adding a few keywords and hoping that it's going to come up in search, forget it. That's not how YouTube's going to work long term. It's probably got a better idea of what you want to watch than you've got, you know. It knows what you're going to click on. It knows how quickly you're going to click on it. It knows how long your watch time's going to be on that sort of video. You know, it's incredible the way that side of things is starting to work. So, and the other side of it as well is that a lot of the stats that I looked at, they'd all got kind of not refreshed, but they'd changed the reporting system back in August last year or something.
Oh.
And the stats all, like, there was a noticeable drop across the board on anything that you searched for because they changed the way the stats engine worked. So you can't really, it's difficult to look at anything over less than a year.
Yeah.
Because they've changed the model for gathering this sort of information.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You'll see it on Google Trends, a little note comes up and says stats engine changed in, I think it was August 2017 or something. So
right.
Yeah, time will tell. I don't think anyone knows the answer.
No, indeed. The other thing, of course, is it's summer. You know, summer's here. People are just as likely to be out in the garden as they are watching YouTube videos.
Yeah. But regardless of all that, they've got a great channel going there, and I enjoy the banter going back and forward between them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so it's worth checking them out anyway. They go into a lot of other, and they're very short, snappy videos as well. John did quite a nice one about I think people were complaining about him moving around too much while filming, and it making him sick, making his viewers sick. And in no uncertain terms, he said, "Well, pretty much go and watch a different channel because I'm not stopping doing it." And that video was of him running around a garden while filming it. So I thought, brilliant. Yeah, loved it.
Good. Yes, I got one of those.
And I enjoy their banter. So it's a very interesting channel to watch.
Jobs at home. When you do work around the house, I know you're saying you haven't done much for a while, but do you treat them like proper jobs, like proper work? Or do you just do the usual, it's only I'll just...
How do you mean treating them like proper jobs?
If my wife asks me to do anything around the house, I put on my work clothes and I treat it like a job. Oh yeah,
definitely. I'm in my work clobber. I'm putting dust sheets down. Other than actually billing my wife at the end of it.
Yes, that wouldn't go down well. Yeah.
As I've mentioned, I think before, I've done nothing in this house since moving in here 5 years ago, and it's been so nice doing this desk. Just a job for me, where I've got an end result that is going to hopefully benefit me for a long period of time.
Yeah,
and I've got a whole list of things I need to get done, and decorating, building stuff, and kind of the nice thing, I don't know if you've found this, but because it's so rare that I actually get to make something for myself, when I do come back to making something for myself, and suddenly you're starting to use all these techniques that you've maybe learnt over the last couple of years, and suddenly a job that you thought was going to be really difficult is really easy, you know, and it's like doing this desk.
It's much more straightforward. Yeah, absolutely.
I would never have known, or I would have had a lot of head scratching, but whereas this has been a relatively straightforward thing to do, and it's all kind of come together quite well.
Absolutely. I mean, I do exactly the same thing. Everything that I do around the house, I treat like a job. So you put your work clothes on, you go and get all the tools that you'd normally use, and you have them ready. Instead of thinking, oh, I'll just do it with what's in my drill case kind of thing, and then having to run back and forth to the workshop or whatever else. What sparked this was that I read about the painter, Magritte, the artist. He had a studio at home. And what he'd do in the morning is get up and get dressed, have his breakfast, whatever, and he'd walk out of the house and he'd go around the block and come back to his studio, and when he'd put his work clothes on, his smock or whatever, he'd do a day's painting, and then he'd do exactly the same thing in reverse. So he just separated out work from home completely. And I think you've got to be that disciplined about it when you're doing jobs around the house. So certainly I do. Otherwise, because I know I'll just say, I'll just, I've got a little drill here. His battery's probably a little bit flat, but I'll use that. I won't bother getting the hammer drill. I'll just force it. No, it's a recipe for disaster.
I'll just hammer a hole in the wall with a screwdriver and use a couple of twigs as wall plugs, and
they'll do. Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty much the same. I do have a small collection of tools in the house, which tend to be all my cast-offs
me too.
I don't keep in the workshop. But I do try to, as you say, treat it like a proper job, bring everything in that you would do for a customer, because generally everything tends to go a lot more smoothly if you go that way, and you get the job done quicker and better.
Yes.
So no, I would completely agree. Do you have much that you want to get done for yourself?
We've been pretty lucky, really, in that we have the house to ourselves now, so the kids aren't around. They're off making their own ways in the world, so we can sort of. It's been mostly for my wife, the bits and pieces that I've done, and not much. She's got a sewing room now, and we've been sort of changing things around in there and things. So just little bits and pieces, but just to make it more comfortable, more easier to use. What's my son's bedroom, so there's loads of sockets everywhere from when he had all his gaming stuff. So no, but there's not much to do in the house really. Bit of painting.
Well, you can spray it now. Would you do that in your house?
I can spray now. No. I'm very well acquainted with tape and drape and statically charged dust sheets, but no, I wouldn't spray in an occupied house again. Not without getting on top of this sort of overspray problem.
And is the overspray thing? Is this something that you always? Is this just unique to the gear to the Graco?
Or I don't think so. It's something that I had. I've got a small high volume, low pressure HVLP sprayer as well, and I've tried that a few times way back and had exactly the same problem. It would get this sort of dust settling on everything. So HVLP is supposedly better, more controllable because it is low pressure. The Gracos run at sort of anywhere between 500 and 2,000 psi, so they really do force the paint out. But it was still something that I had with HVLP. So I don't know is the short answer. Some people seem to run the Gracos without any problem at all. I've had people, in the comments on the videos say, one guy was saying, well, I sprayed a 9 by 7 meter room and I didn't even bother putting dust cloths down. You think, well, why would you do that anyway? But okay. I would never do that. There's no way I could have done.
You just couldn't take the risk, no matter how.
No, there was so much paint in the air. There was so much paint in the air that I would literally have, 1/4 inch, 6 mil on the soles of my shoes just from walking around.
Staggering. Well, I mean, I saw it on your bench in the last video you did, and it was almost a pot of paint that you just scraped off the side.
Well, that was me using the wrong size tip, but yeah, it's not that, no, but it's the videos. Keep watching and you'll see. But there's it's dry dust that you can sweep up into a dustpan afterwards. And every tool I own, it has a light sprinkling of dried spray paint on it. So watch out for the next video on how to clean spray paint off your favourite tools.
I'm looking forward to all of these. I think it's going to be a real. But this is what I'm saying. You've picked a niche.
Being an idiot, yeah.
No, but no one's making videos about this. I mean, a thing that I often get asked to do videos on is doing alcove units.
Yeah.
And I would love to do videos on alcove units, but the trouble is, it adds too much time onto the job.
Yeah.
To film it because generally speaking, the lighting is always terrible. So if I was going to film it in any meaningful way to get a decent end result, I'd have to bring some extra lighting with us.
Yeah.
And then every 2 seconds, you know, you're either going to be looking at my back or I'm going to have to be moving the camera, you know, constantly around the work that I'm doing. And it adds so much time. And I think people don't appreciate that filming a project can add 2 to 3 times it can extend the job by 2 to 3 times. I would say filming a project.
Have you ever worked out what the ratio is to what your production time is for what appears in the final edit?
No, I haven't. I haven't, to be honest.
Right. When I was first doing YouTube, there was about an hour of production for every minute that you see on screen. I've got it down to about half an hour now. But it still adds a long time, and you're absolutely right. You know, at least double, twice as long to actually do a proper shoot of an install. Which is why I couldn't do any on this big job, unfortunately. The thing that people ask me about is scribing.
Yeah,
there's a real dearth of scribing videos, and again, it's something I've touched on briefly in other videos, but I haven't done one about scribing, and I had a absolutely perfect one on this job, and I just couldn't do it. It was a face frame cabinet that was going into a complete trapezoid. It was fitting in under a shelf down to the floor. The floor and the shelf ran away at different levels, and both walls were out of whack as well. So it would have been the perfect sort of teaching opportunity. But I just needed to get it done. You know, I was running late, and you've just got to crack on with it. You can't hang around.
I mean, generally, when I'm doing alcoves, it's pretty much a week's work, and there's very little wiggle room in that, and there's certainly not enough wiggle room to film the project. If I was going to film it and do a decent job of filming it, it would take best part of 2 weeks, and I just can't be on the customer site for that long, you know.
Yeah,
and plus, you know, effectively you're losing a week's paid work from it that you could have something else booked for that following week.
Absolutely.
You know, because it's just everything's taking you so much longer.
And again, you don't want to do those sort of installs where you just shove a GoPro in one corner of the room, and as you say, you know, that's just watching somebody do it. That's not teaching. That's not doing an instructional video. That's just.
And I think that's another really important point, is that you've got to make some sort of story out of it. But if I don't get us wrong, I do put videos out there of just leaving the camera going and putting it on, doing it as a time lapse or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do the odd one of those every now and then. But you've got to kind of formulate some sort of story behind it for people to find it vaguely interesting. And you've got to be, that's another thing that you're constantly thinking about while you're doing the job. Which are the bits that are going to be relevant, which bits aren't? You know, you can't just leave the camera going and hope for the best.
No. Well, not if, I know some people do, but not if you actually want to tell a story, as you say, and edit these things in properly.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is why some of the bigger jobs, you just don't see many videos about them. But there's a lot of niches that aren't covered on YouTube at all.
Yeah, very true.
And as I say, like the spraying thing, I think that's going to be quite an interesting series to watch. So,
yeah, well, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll see where things go on the whole YouTube side. But I mean, the other side with YouTube, it's early days. The vast majority of people I know don't even use YouTube yet, or they're just starting to get into it. You know,
is it just 10 years?
Yeah.
Is this the 11th year? I can't remember. It's only a decade.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, monetization's only existed for 5 years or something. You know, so you've only been able to make a living out of YouTube as a relatively recent thing.
You're making a living out of YouTube? I'm impressed, man.
Oh, geez, no. If only. Yeah. No, long way off. Long way off. People doing it as a professional thing is a relatively new industry, you know, and it's predominantly American because they are well ahead of the curve on us. It's
a big audience. They always have been. You know, when I was working in as a photographer in the publishing, children's educational publishing markets, they had to get the American market because it made or was make or break for children's books for the titles that they were selling. They had to get the US audience. So yeah, it's a huge market, 300 million people.
But I just think, if anything, internationally, it's just going to grow and grow and grow. You know, as this becomes more entrenched in smart TV technology and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
Ultimately, it's got to be the route where normal television just ceases to exist. Why? I mean, I don't know about you, but I very, very rarely watch normal television now.
Define normal television.
As in terrestrial TV. Like, yeah, I watch the news in the morning while having my breakfast, and that's about it. And even then, I'm gradually moving off that onto YouTube, because there's just better and more interesting things to watch. And the same goes for podcasts. You know, podcasts, although they've been around for quite a long time and there's millions of them out there, still, I would say the vast majority of the people in the UK haven't even heard of podcasts. Vast majority. I was chatting to a joiner who was out at this exhibition job that I was doing, and I was chatting on to him, happened to name drop our podcast, and I was just saying, do you ever listen to podcasts while working?
What was that?
And he pretty much gave us a look as if to say, I've literally no idea what you're talking about. And
hopefully we've gained another subscriber. Yeah.
Hopefully. Now he does. I gave him all the details, and he might be listening to this very show.
Excellent. Well,
or he might not.
Welcome. If
yes, I didn't know his name, unfortunately.
One more quick one then.
Go on then.
In this age of 21st century, everything on demand, have you got any woodworking books?
Oh, yes. I've got a whole collection of them. In fact, they're right in front of us. Hold on, I'll go and get them.
Well, there's lucky.
Hold on, they're over here. Let me get. What about yourself? You chat on while I'm getting these.
I've got a few. It's something that comes up from time to time, and sometimes an actual physical book is just nice to refer to, especially if you need to refer to pictures, to drawings, to diagrams. And I've got a few. They're not all showstoppers, but some of them are just absolute classics and definitely needed. The first one, which is probably one that most people have got, is Modern Practical Joinery by George Ellis.
I haven't got that one.
First printed in 1902, so modern being a relative term. If like me, you work in predominantly period houses, so the housing stock in London is overwhelmingly Victorian. Every home that I work in is probably a Victorian house or a flat that's been converted from a Victorian house. This book's an absolute goldmine of information on how things were made back then. It's absolutely fantastic. I say first published in 1902, still in print. It's that popular. Paperback will cost you £16 on Amazon. We'll put links in the show notes to all this. And it's just a generally very, very useful book to have if you do work in these sort of houses, these sort of old properties.
I will check that out. I will. There's a one for my collection. I haven't got that one. Go on, give us another.
Okay, another one. Okay, Human Dimension and Interior Space, a source book of design reference standards by Julius Panero and Martin Zelnick, published in 1979. A quick shout out to Gary Martin on Twitter, a guy I know on Twitter who put me onto this. If you make things that people will sit on, sit at, sleep on, or work at, you need a copy of this book. It has reference standards for everything you can imagine, from chairs and tables to office furniture. What's the standard size for a banquette?
It's really.
It's in there
to that degree.
There, yeah,
that's interesting.
To that degree, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's for. There's a word, anthropometrics. It's not anthropomorphic. It's anthropometrics. It's about size and calculation of human dimension. So they have, what's the distance between the buttock and the back of the knee on average, and it will give you that average for different heights of people and different races. Lots and lots of detail in this. Again, still available. It's available on Kindle, actually. I'd go for the hardback or the paperback version. A bit more pricey, this one. It's 35 quid.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you make things that people will sit at, tables and chairs, beds, whatever, get a copy of this book. It has all the dimensions in it you will ever need. Absolutely fantastic. Another one?
Go for it.
Or do you want to have a go?
No, you do yours and then I'll do mine.
Okay. Okay, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. My wife bought me this book when I first started doing the handyman work. As a bit of a joke, it's the You Can Do It, the complete B&Q step-by-step book of home improvement. Now, B&Q, if you don't know, is a large DIY shed like Lowe's or Home Depot in the US and the one that I can't remember in France. And it's obviously B&Q promoting their own brands. So you will take your performance power drill and drill a hole with your performance power bit and all that sort of stuff. However, as a general guide for the absolute basics, if you're brand new to any kind of work around a more modern home, this has got everything in it. It's published by Thames and Hudson, so really great pictures, really great illustrations. £13 on Amazon, still in print, and it is very, very, very useful. If you don't know anything about the house you live in, get a copy and have a read through. If you don't know your soffit from your lock plate, then yeah, it'll give you those details. It's written in very simple language, even I could understand it, and well illustrated, and it covers all the basics that you might ever want to tackle.
I remember when I was growing up, how sad's this? And my parents were very into like Reader's Digest and all that sort of thing, and they had this the Reader's Digest DIY manual, and it was this great big red ring binder thing about 4 inches thick, or 3 or 4 inches thick, giant thing.
Oh yeah.
And I used to spend hours when I was little just reading that. I thought it was dead interesting. I think,
oh yeah.
That's probably part of my kind of how I've ended up getting into a lot of this stuff, is just books that happen to be left lying around the house, and it's a similar sort of thing where it's like how to do tiling, how to fix just all DIY stuff.
Good stuff. One more. Plywood, A Material Story by Christopher Wilk and Elizabeth Bisley. Bit more of a reference type book, this one. Traces the history of plywood from its use in 18th century furniture. Yes, it's that old. Through its emerging as an industrial product in the 19th century to the 20th century modernists, Ray and Charles, Eames, and all that sort of stuff. Covers a little bit of the manufacture of plywood, but mostly the application of it in furniture. I'm only part way through with this one, and it's absolutely fascinating. If you're interested in this kind of thing, this may well be slightly on the nerdier spectrum, but it sounds right up our street, doesn't it? And it is absolutely fascinating.
It does sound fascinating.
£21 from Amazon, that one. Again, some great illustrations in there of period furniture from the US, principally, made with plywood backs.
Great suggestions. I shall check out all of those. I'm surprised we haven't got any overlap.
Goodness me!
Unless we pick ones that you happen to already have in your collection hidden away. Let's have a look. Okay, let's start with this: The Good Wood Guide by Albert Jackson and David Day.
Nope, don't have that one.
Which is, if you're ever wanting a book just telling you about different types of wood and things like the characteristics of the wood, the workability, common uses. For particular, you can go in sweet chestnut, sourced in Europe and Asia Minor. Also gets called Spanish chestnut and European chestnut, commonly used for blah, blah, blah. Workability, it's easy to work with the hand and machine tools, and the coarse texture can be brought to a smooth finish and it glues well. Gives you the average weights and all this sort of thing. So and what it looks like, more importantly. So it's a handy reference book just to have for identifying wood and then working out what you can do with it as well. So that's quite a good one. Collins.
Is that a new book, or is it how old is it?
Let's have a look. I think it's quite old, but it's probably still in print. First published 1996, right, okay. So not mega old. Another one. Most of mine are quite modern. Finished carpentry. In fact, a lot of the Taunton's Press books I quite like. Finished carpentry, for pros, by pros book. Again, going into it's more the American side of things, but it's interesting anyway. And there's a lot of stuff that can be brought over onto European carpentry as well. And a lot of stuff that you would just maybe want to, window casements and architraves and cornicing and all that sort of thing. That's very useful book. Another one, Taunton's Press again, Shelves, Cabinets and Bookcases. Really good book going into just the design and just construction techniques for loads of different types of bookcases and shelves and units and built-ins and freestanding units. And
excellent.
Very good book. Let's see, what else? I'm not going to do all of these.
No, I was going to say...
I've got quite a lot that are very similar, but... So there's another Taunton... I've got loads of Taunton's ones that are...
Similar.
They overlap, but they're not exactly the same. But they're all very similar. There's a one called Get Your House Right by Marianne Cusato. And it's architectural elements to use and to avoid.
Ooh.
And it's all about getting your proportions right. And more from an architectural standpoint, but you can certainly carry a lot of it through to
interesting,
the woodworking and internal side of things as well. But you read through the book and it's, why a house will have its windows arranged in a certain way and what size the windows need to be.
Interesting.
If they are arranged like that, for example, but a lot of it can be brought right through to, if you're designing built-in alcove units and you can use the same kind of proportion information that's described in this book. So it's quite an interesting book. There you go. That's 4 random ones. I'll tell you what, there's another out-of-print one by James Krenoff, the Impractical Cabinet Maker.
Sounds like me.
That's well out of print, but you might find it used on eBay. But that's 1975. That was... Well, this one's published in 1986, so... if you might find a second-hand copy kicking about, but it's quite an interesting book, all about James Krenoff, furniture maker.
Always worth having a look on Amazon, having a search through Amazon, because a lot of second-hand booksellers list in Amazon Marketplace. Because obviously, if people are searching for a book, then they need to be selling where people are looking, basically. So you don't have to go trawling through eBay, but a search on Amazon will often turn up out of print copies. Very good, very good. How did we get to be this show number 9? By the way,
I know
it's.
I can't believe it. That has flown past. That has absolutely flown past. So the next one will be our last one of this season.
Our last one of this series, yeah.
Technically our last one until we get with Patreons up to 50. So,
yeah.
Come on, we'll pull your fingers out and chuck $1 in the pot on Patreon.
Yeah, we'll have a chat a bit more about that on the final show, I think, won't we? About the goals and the what we were aiming for.
I think so. I think the general consensus is that we both immensely enjoy doing this.
Absolutely, yeah, I love it. But obviously, it is very much a time sink, more so for you who edits it all so beautifully together every week. And well, I mean, between both of us, we're sharing jobs for
putting stuff out there on social media and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
But you can easily say that it's 6 hours work, but well, no, probably more than that. Probably 7 or 8 hours work per episode once you include the actual recording time,
yes,
and then the editing time, and then everything that you do behind the scenes to get it out there. It can easily take 7 or 8 hours per episode, which it does. That's what a lot of people have said. Can you do it weekly? And it's like, well, would love to, but we can't take that much time out of our day jobs to do that not
unless we change it up somehow. I know the shop steward Joey Chalk, King Best Timberworks, and his two oppos who do their podcast. I don't think it's edited. I think it's just a live stream on YouTube one evening, which is one way of doing it, one way of keeping that level of work down.
Yeah.
But I quite like what we do. I quite like the fact that it does come out as a much more sort of conversational, edited podcast.
Yeah, and I think so. And plus the feedback from everyone's been lovely as well. So
yeah. Let's just throw this out there. Obviously, we would love you to rate us on iTunes. We ask for you to do that because iTunes is the principal rating system for podcasts. So if you can spare the time to rate or review us on iTunes, that really helps push us up the stack and get more attention, basically. But thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. You can support the show at patreon.com, Measuring Up Podcast. You can follow us both on YouTube. I'm 10minuteworkshop.tv.
And I'm Gosforth Handyman on YouTube.
Very good. And on the Twitter?
And it's Gosforth Andy on Twitter. Again, Twitter's hard work.
It is.
I struggle with Twitter. I just don't get it. If people could follow us on there, I do try to publish kind of sneak peeks of stuff that I don't put elsewhere. I try not to make it just a feed of everything that's happening on Instagram. I try to keep the Twitter feed slightly different. But I don't know what it is on Twitter. I've only got like 100 followers. So
yeah, I've got a few hundred, but again, it does vary. I'm 10 Minute Shop. I had to think about that for a second on Twitter and 10 Minute Workshop on Instagram. Your Gosforth Handyman on Instagram.
Gosforth Handyman on Instagram.
Instagram for the show is at Measuring Up Podcast. If you want to contact us in any way, Twitter is the obvious way. Measuring Up PC on Twitter. Or through email, contact@measuringuppodcast.com will always reach us.
Indeedy. Oh, I forgot follow-up. Sorry. Just a very quick one. I spotted somewhere, I can't remember where it was, I think it was on Twitter, and Bernard asked if there's if we've got any tips for fixing stuff to a dot and dab wall.
Oh, okay.
And yes, I did a video all about that. Use a product called Core Fix. And if you have a quick search on YouTube, you'll see the video I did about fixing to dot and dab, and that will probably solve most of your problems.
Fantastic.
Andrew MacLellan was asking about using pocket holes in MDF, whether or not you can do that, because he'd heard that you're not supposed to use pocket holes in MDF.
Oh my God.
I think what he's getting at is that, or what he might have heard, MDF doesn't take screws well on the edge grain because it tends to split the wood. But MDF will take screws quite happily on the face grain. It'll take screws really, really well on the face grain, just as well as plywood or anything. So, yeah, pocket holes going into the edge grain, you might run into problems. So you have to be a little bit careful in case the wood does split. I mean, in terms of something that's just going to hold the wood while the glue dries, it'll probably be fine. But try and design your thing in such a way that your screws ultimately going to grip into the face grain of the MDF rather than into the edge grain.
They go in at an angle, so whichever way they go in, they're going to chew it up a little bit. The thing that I found is don't over tighten them, whatever you do.
Yeah.
If you overcook them, you can rip right through, and it doesn't end well. Don't use many pocket holes, I have to say. I don't like them much, but I did use them on this big job for the cabinets. To fix the cabinets, the face frames, they were dominoed at the bottom, and then just pocket holes around the edges just to hold them in place.
Yeah,
with a dab of glue as well.
And that's the thing. Once the glue's dry, you're going to have such a strong joint anyway. And Andrew had specifically asked, how do you join MDF at right angles for a solid, hard-wearing kid's toy box? And you would probably say dominoes, and I would probably say biscuits.
Yep.
I very much doubt I would use pocket holes for something like that.
No.
I wouldn't really see the point in it, assuming you're never going to want to take it to bits. But even if you did want to take it to bits, pocket holes aren't going to work well as a knockdown fixing. No. You'd have to have something different if you did want it to be dismantleable. You'd have to have proper knockdown fixings of some description.
Yeah, incidentally, I've been using the Domino Connect knockdown fixings just this week, first time in anger, and they're very good.
Yeah. So for a kid's toy box, glue and biscuits or dominoes,
or just screw it together.
Or just screw it together and fill the holes. Yeah.
Butt joint it, screw it together with Spax M-cut MDF screws. You won't get any splitting, and it'll be strong as anything.
Yeah.
If you fret about it, then put a little angle piece on the inside, a little timber strip, a little timber fillet, cut at an angle to reinforce the corners. But yeah, that'll be fine. Good stuff. Pick of the week. Have you been listening to anything, watching anybody, or have you just been too busy doing your actual work?
I think other than the stuff that I've already mentioned, the Matthias, the Wandel, John Heiss project, I've been quite enjoying. What else? I've been listening loads of very random podcasts, but I honestly couldn't tell you what.
Yeah, I've just had my head down, sort of racing headlong towards the finish post on this job. So I've not really been listening or watching to much of anything other than catching up to the usual suspects. But I will, since we've had a book theme. Let me just pick out a book as a pick of the week. Not a new book. It's published in 2015, but it's called How We Got to Now: 6 Innovations That Made the Modern World. Again, it's on the slightly nerdy end of the spectrum, a bit science and techie-ish, but by Stephen Johnson. It's beautifully written. It is a very wide-ranging and yet incredibly deep look at specific innovations: glass, cold, sound, clean, time, and light, and the impact that they've had on our modern world. Can't recommend it enough. It's absolutely fantastic. About £9 as a paperback, 3 or 4 in Kindle from Amazon. If you like that slightly, the nerdy end of the spectrum, science and techie sort of things, you may well find it fascinating. I'm about halfway through. I'm going to save the rest for when I'm on holiday.
Yeah,
because it's that good.
Well, I shall check that one out as well. I've got a whole list of books to buy now that I've vaguely caught up on jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll have time on your hands. Yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to have a weekend off. I won't know what to do with myself.
Oh, have you got work booked in for like next week and stuff? Then, are you straight back to it, or are you having a bit of a break?
Oh yeah, straight back to it. I'm going out. I've shot a video this morning. I'm going out to see somebody this afternoon. I've got another bunk out to do, and I just want to template the space. It's going under the stairs, and I just want to make sure that that it fits, that the corner isn't too high. So yeah, plywood bunk out, and then some doors to do, and yeah, no show. In fact, I'm still not completely clear of this North London job. I've got a couple of freestanding pieces to do for them as well. But
well, no rest and all that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Good luck with your picture hanging.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, looking forward to that.